The music went down, so I'll say that that's time to start. Welcome, everyone. I am Ari Kaplan, Head of Technical Evangelism at Databricks. So first of all, how many of you, this is your first summit, whether Databricks Summit, whether Spark Summit as it was before? Wow, that I don't even know if I saw someone who did not have. So who was here before then? All right, just about one, I think. So welcome back. I'm just trying to gauge how deep, how light I go. Along the way, I'm very conversational, so feel free to ask questions. But what I am going to do is, talk about like what is a data intelligence platform. This is our safe harbor statement that every presentation has. But one fun thing that you're all a part of course, the signal just went out, which is okay since I now have a prop. Right now we are, I'm going to premiere or announce that just co-authored the Data Intelligence Platform for Dummies book. It'll be coming out at least in ebook form in a couple of days. So like if you follow me on LinkedIn or if you just follow blog posts on Databricks, you can go ahead and get a copy of it. And if you haven't heard Dummies, doesn't mean you're a dummy. It's just a popular book series. So this went out. So when I do the demo, I think I'll just read the code that I'm writing until we get this back. But I'll kind of filibuster a little bit. So I joined Databricks about 2 years ago, and before that, somewhat known in the sports analytics world for having created and led a couple of sports organizations' analytics department, the Chicago Cubs, most notably. The owner brought me in to create and lead it, as well as the Dodgers, and we're in San Francisco, the Giants as well, not the leader of their analytics, but one of their professional scouts. And there we go. All right. So this is more visual. Also been, in addition to analytics, a major league scout. So top left, if you know Anthony Rizzo, was a key analyst scout, and he was the person, as soon as the ball touched his glove, 108 years of not winning the world championship had set. And being here in San Francisco, if you know Hunter Pence, I was a scout with an assistant to the GM with the Astros and recommended he gets called up to the majors using both analytics and humanistic things. If you're interested to learn more about, I encourage everyone to do their own like AI for good, whether it's AI or just something in this world, short time we have to do something for good. One of my causes, my spare time is trying to find missing in action prisoners of war from conflicts around the world. And one of the more notable ones is Raoul Wallenberg, who was a Swedish diplomat during the Holocaust, rescued tens of thousands of Hungarian Jewish civilians, but was kidnapped and disappeared in the Gulag. So using data and AI to piece together every prison record, every interrogation that happened to find him, and actually Swedes that went missing and other nationalities. But what is data intelligence? The theme of this conference is actually data intelligence for all, or data intelligence platform, and that's a fairly newer moniker that we've been using. The foundation of this is what really got Databricks well known. We started out, our founders created Apache Spark, which is open source, MLflow, Delta Lake, and we built a company on top of it. And the lakehouse solves one of the biggest challenges that used to be in the data space. I also used to be in Moscone Center when I was president of the Worldwide Oracle User Group with 22,000 members when we acquired Java and MySQL and PeopleSoft. But the reason I bring that up is Oracle was like the leading premier database, the most scalable. You could scale to billions of records. And now you need to scale to trillions of records, especially when you get into large language models. You hear of models with hundreds of billions of parameters, and you want to have this massive data set. But Oracle and the databases back then, even MySQL, Teradata, and so on, structured data was the rule. numbers, text, and date field, basically, which is great. It's great for data warehousing, what happened in the past, what's the log of all sales. And then this completely separate paradigm started sprouting up in companies, the data lake, which is unstructured data, videos, images, PDFs, PowerPoints, like large text, images, things like that. That totally different system and environment, questions you can ask. And then and that's called the data lake. So lakehouse is a play on the word of data warehouse and data lake. It's a term that our CEO coined, Ali Ghodsi, just during a meeting, as legend goes, but it's not just legend, it's what happened. And he just came up with the name. Marketing department was unaware, but the name stuck. And now it's not a Databricks term, even though we came up for it. It's really an entire market. There's a lot of companies now that have their own version of lakehouses. We're the ones that initiated that. And for any lakehouse in general, at least 3 out of 4 of the Fortune 500 have one form of lakehouse or another. So that's just a few years ago, that wasn't the case. So the lakehouse bridges the gap. You could see a gap in there. These are 2 very different environments. You use basically SQL for one, select star from a table, and then you can use all different other tools for interfacing with unstructured data. So Lakehouse brings it all under one platform. So I think the next slide, and I got the clicker here, brings it all under one completely governed environment. And a part of this is something called multimodal. It's just a tech term, which means you can now find insights from structured and unstructured data together. So why is that important? Well, an example in sports, and by the way, the Texas Rangers are going to be speaking tomorrow. They've been a close customer, one of the few accounts I'm working on, but they use kinematic data, like how's the arm moving through a sequence. And then numeric data, like what was the speed, the spin direction, the spin axis of the pitch. And you need both, you don't need it, but in certain use cases, you need structured and unstructured data since the world is complex. People, in a more common use case, buy products at a grocery store. You want to know the transaction, but you also want to know maybe the path to purchase, which has been a really hard data science challenge. What triggers of advertisements did they see, billboards, mentions on NPR that led them to make a purchase? So these are 4 different ideas of multimodal, and I want to have your brain start thinking about AI on top of this. So one of them is image on the bottom right. That's, if you haven't seen that data set, kind of a humorous one. Is that a muffin or is that a Chihuahua? Is that Kentucky Fried Chicken or is it like a different type of dog? Is that Saruman or a mop or a dachshund? At this stage, for this type of classification, that is one of your traditional data science algorithms. I should say now, everyone talking GenAI, you go through this exhibit hall, it's all GenAI. You turn on the news network, it's all GenAI. GenAI is super exciting. I'm going to talk more about that. But always remember, the vast majority of use cases that we see at companies still is what you might call traditional AI, which is basically making predictions, what might happen numerically in the future based on what happened in the past, or what's called classifications, which is what you see on the bottom right. And for classifications, there's supervised and unsupervised. For this use case, a human had to tag, this is a dog, this is a muffin, first for it to learn off of. Unsupervised, it just figures it out more on its own. Text analysis is really growing well into these large language models, but it's looking at information and trying to understand the context of that for the use case. So a doctor report, if you do a baseball player of their injury, you want to know, is it bad, is it not bad? You want to do a report on Yelp reviews, and you just want to know, what is the summary or the consensus? On a scale of 1 to 10, is it positive or negative, like a sentiment analysis? Geospatial in the top left. Now, I know a lot of people have seen like sales reports of here are our sales by geography. And where AI adds on top of that, or the data intelligence on top of that, is more predictive. Where will we run out of stock on certain items based on hour, based on day? We have health facilities, police departments, ambulances being stationed where they think an injury or the need for an ambulance might happen. NHS in England, for example. So that it's more, in addition to geospatial, it's more the predictive nature of that information. And then the bottom left is a really niche but challenging part of data science called time series. So based on past information, what might happen in the future, but it's using AI to better understand the context of everything. Panama Canal breaks down, how is that going to affect your supply chain, for example? There's a heat wave, the Baltimore Bridge, what have you, like what if scenarios, simulations, things of that nature. So coming back from the lakehouse slide, one of the challenges, if you don't have a lakehouse, one reason why it's so popular is you typically have vendor sprawl, or solution sprawl. It could be open source. You have different solutions for really every step of the way. Governance, you have multiple tools, which is really tough to deal with if you have different audit logs. One audit log for structured data, one for unstructured data, one for your social media, one for your access. You really need for security and compliance even, like one giant audit log that tracks it all, or one security access. Business intelligence, you want to make reports on all of your data instead of multiple reports on siloed data. Every step of the way, it's been a struggle. And so that's why Databricks Data Intelligence Platform has been great. Now you have the lack, the data and AI being siloed is a challenge not just in finding data, but in governing data. And when I say finding data, this is one of the things I'm going to show in the demo. The traditional way is a keyword search, find customers that have churned. And if it has the exact word churn in it, traditionally that gives you the result. But as you see with LLMs, if you've ever used that, you really wanted to understand the concept of churning. So it'll understand the word churn, it'll understand the word lost customer, maybe it'll write its own SQL snippet to say, show me customers where revenue went down to zero or went down to zero in the last 2 months or the last 6 months, things of that nature. The other challenge with having siloed data is it's really expensive. Anyone here a data engineer, by the way? A bunch, but maybe a quarter of you. Yeah, it's a challenge to copy data back and forth, on cloud, off cloud, one system to another. It's costly in time and in storage costs and even compute costs. So the whole data intelligence platform / lakehouse, bringing it all under one umbrella, whether it's, we have tabular now, but whether it's Iceberg or Hudi or Parquet, the three main formats out there. And the other thing, data intelligence for all, the word for all is that whole democratization play. So the more technical people get more efficient in their work, the better. And the more you can bring non-technical people into the fold, that's more value. I did a study, my last company, scraped down from LinkedIn, job titles and such. For everyone who's associated with data science, there were 30 data analysts in their title or description, and about 7,000 people who had the word Excel in there as well. So if you can enable other personas to find information more easily in your own proprietary data in your own context, then you just enable 30 to 7,000 times as many people. So we did the lakehouse. That's kind of the foundation of Databricks. And then about a year and a half ago, generative AI came up. Some of you might have been doing large language models for many years, but it really came into the mainstream. And it's pretty wild. I've been an evangelist of data and AI for a long time. Like when I started with baseball, they made a movie, Moneyball, about the struggles of trying to get people to understand insights to drive action. But yeah, there's a lot of resistance for decades. In the last few years, it's flipped, and every single executive says, just how do we get AI? What are the use cases? How can we get started? And that's one area. We acquired Mosaic, Mosaic AI, is what we call it now, which makes the creation of large language models and what's called RAG and fine-tuning much, much easier. So Data Intelligence Platform, like on one hand, it's the lakehouse with data involved, but if I were to like stand on one foot in an elevator going up and down, and I would say that data intelligence just helps companies find like better contextual information on all of their data and do it securely. And that's super important. Probably heard all these use cases of data being leaked. Companies that have healthcare, you really legally can't send your data to OpenAI, ChatGPT, like your data, like legally you can't. There's hallucinations. So companies now that want to make their own LLMs or even more broadly GenAI, they just want to make sure the data where it needs to stays where it needs to without getting out. And if it does get out, maybe you can abstract the data like a clean room type of environment. So that's part of the data intelligence. Then the other part is making every person that touches a platform, and I'll talk about Databricks, but pretty much every software vendor, like GitHub has a Copilot. I'm sure every major vendor in the coming years is going to have like a code assist part of the solution. Ours is called Databricks Assistant, but part of a data intelligence platform is making, when you do data engineering, how can it automatically tune the workload so it ingests the quickest or it merges data the quickest? When you are a SQL programmer, how can you better improve on the code? Or you're a Python programmer, how can you debug things? So this is kind of like the one architecture, and this is where intelligence is plugged in every step of the way. So ETL, doing real-time analytics with more intelligence. That's a Delta Live table. The orchestration, like when do I kick off jobs to load, to merge, to transform, that is going to be improved upon with data intelligence. Databricks SQL, if you saw the keynote this morning, that's our fastest growing product ever in terms of revenue, in terms of usage. But there's intelligence being built in to help you automatically fine-tune, balance, query, and so on. So the performance is better, everyone saves money, saves time, it's simplified, so the engineers can work on some of the more complex tasks. And kind of going down, Unity Catalog is one of our like three main areas. It's our governance solution. When I say governance, people usually only think of access control, and yes, that's extremely important. And in addition to that, there are things like lineage. You want to be transparent, especially in the world of GenAI, where you don't know where your sources of data are. You want to make sure that somebody asks a question, is this medical device available? They want to know, is that source of data from 5 years ago or 5 minutes ago? And so you'll know the trace of data from the raw data through the transformation to the traditional AI, Gen AI, your notebooks, all of that. So that's called Unity Catalog. And then the Delta Lake is an open source solution that our founders created, but it's open source, so don't need Databricks for that. But on top of it, we have the ability, and there'll be some more announcements this week. We think it became official a couple days ago. Like for example, Tabular, the people that made some of these other iceberg formats. Now you can have data really at rest anywhere and you'll be able to do everything that you can do in Databricks now with data at rest in all different data sources. All right, so one other theme I like to say is everyone here likes to say good AI or good analytics really depends on good data to get insights. Not always necessarily, like sometimes you could have choppy data, what you call dirty data, and you could still get insights, but you have to be more of a math, probability, statistics person to really evaluate and see what the metrics say of how accurate a model is. But by and large, the better your data is, the more accurate your predictions will be. And I did that caveat since I don't want people to wait until things are perfect before they implement models. If you know statistics and probability, there are metrics like R-squared, Gini, norm, log loss, that'll tell you how accurate it is, and then it's up to the human to decide that's good enough to put in production or not. So this is my slide, Unity catalog. Talked about access control and lineage and auditing, but some of the other three things are really key. Discovery. When I mentioned it's hard for people to get access to the data, super hard. About 90% of unstructured data, at least, people don't know exists. They don't know how to search through it. So enabling people to know what data exists is better. I'll bring up the Rangers again, since I just had them on my, I'm doing the live broadcast show, by the way. If anyone has people at home that want to see it, or you can go back and watch all different segments. We have 50 guests, but one of them is Rangers, and they were excited since Databricks enabled non-technical people to be able to look at video, for example, and search through information, discover data. And then monitoring is really key. And not just monitoring of access control, but how cool is it if you make your own LLM, or what's called RAG, like a ability to use your own data to augment some bigger established LLMs? How cool is it to be able to see who is accessing your LLMs? What are they asking? How often is it being used? Is it not being used? Is data not being used at all? You have to make people aware of it. And this is just a cool image of like the lineage. Super easy for people coming in late. Co-authored the Data Intelligence Platform for Dummies book. So I can now say even a dummy can now do the lineage. And it's all about like monitoring like sensitive information. This is another example where in the master data warehouse, for example, Databricks SQL, you can have the clear text email or social security, but then when you do a SQL query or you share data with a third party, it gives some obfuscation, such as a hexadecimal representation. And the lakehouse monitoring, what schemas are being used, what tables, when, visualizing it, and then also being able to see what costs are. Like it's been a challenge in the past. You could have one user that runs a massive query and it costs $5,000, and you don't have control or even a view into who's spending what. So it can help you save time as well. So I'm going to jump in. Has anyone had like hands on the Databricks platform before? Okay, and who has not had hands on? So about 50-50. I probably don't have time to go through all of it, but this is what the platform looks like. Different personas have different capabilities. There's things for data engineers, for data scientists, for business users, and so on. But this is called a notebook. It's a common thing, especially for Python type of programming. And this is like the main interface for like the actual hands-on keyboard folks within Databricks. So I'm going to show you how data intelligence augments the work of a computer programmer can do. And I don't know if people have ever done computer programming, but I'll walk through an example where it gets accelerated. It could take me like a couple hours to debug things. And we have what's called a Databricks Assistant built into the product. I don't know if you noticed, I just clicked this thing that says Assistant. And then on the right, it's like ChatGPT, but it's our assistant to everything you do. And then I'm going to conclude by showing you this semantic search. So the first thing is, I have a notebook. You could Slack me. This is publicly available. IMDb, if you're a movie fan, this is a database of movies. And I just filtered it to the top 1,000 movies of all time. So the first thing we did, I think I did this right before I started to save some time. I could click for it if you want. But the first one is to read in the database into Unity Catalog, and that's why Unity Catalog is so important. Once you register something in Databricks, if you want to, everyone will have insights into the movie database. So anyone in the organization that you enable this to get through, in addition to just seeing The Dark Knight, I don't know if you could read that much, I'll try to make it bigger, or The Godfather, but if they just want to ask films, it'll understand film and movie are synonymous, or production might be. All right, so the first thing is, when we screen scraped this data, as is common, there's like junk in the field. So if you could see, it's the movie, and in parentheses, the year that the movie was made. And that, parentheses 1994, is not part of the Shawshank Redemption title. You and I know that, but the computer doesn't know that. So part of the process of BI and AI is to clean up the data. I made the font too big, so I have to wiggle my mouse right there. So you can see the name is embedded, and what you do is just go into Databricks Assistant, and you could type, hey, here's an example, the title column in our data set, Shawshank Redemption, and I want to make a new column where the title name is from the beginning and where the start of the parentheses is, and the year produced is between the parentheses. So I just, I could have typed in the prompt, like here's an example. I just copied and pasted there. And Databricks Assistant came out and said, great, I have an actual code that I recommend. And if you see this, you can replace the active code into here, and then you run it, and look, the title doesn't have that parentheses year. And if I scroll to the right, I made a new thing called release date. So if I were to go back in time a year and a half ago and say, now Ari, you can have a program where you just say, make a new column without this parentheses date year, and it'll do it. Like, that's a mic drop moment. Like, I possibly would have fainted. I'm like, there's no way a year and a half from now that that's possible. But it is. And, there are, like, ChatGPT has stuff like this. But, this is our version in our product, and keeps getting better and better. But it is related to Databricks, and it is put into Unity Catalog, which is really the benefit of doing it within the Databricks environment. Since once which I already do, have this registered in Unity Catalog, you get all of the benefits. So then, another thing I could just repeat. Here's another prompt that I can type into our assistant, which is, now, if you noticed, we have info, which is just, they pumped in a bunch of info, IMDb, into one column, has the votes, a vertical pipe, and then the gross dollar amount. So my question was, here's what the format is. Write a function to extract both the gross revenue and the votes from the info column into their own columns. So like, it knows the context of into their own columns. And this is not like some demo that I worked super hard to make sure the wording's exactly perfect. Like, if you play around with this, like, use your own wording, it's pretty darn accurate and good. And it writes the code, and then it actually even, by the way, writes the documentation. And it will tell you, this is what it does. Here are two new columns. And if I like this code, simply just put it back into here. And I think I ran it, but just in case, run it again. And then, you get the idea for additional transformations. Another is like, write the number of stars, like star meaning Tom Hanks or Brad Pitt or Jonah Hill, who partly portrayed me in that Moneyball movie, and it'll just do a count for you. And I have just kind of similar ideas. This is the day in the life of a data engineer. Write code that will extract the director. Is Morgan Freeman the director? Tim Robbins? No, they were stars. Who is the director? And again, it will show me the code, and it will show me documentation, and it will give a function as well. And by the way, if you've ever done coding, it decided to use this hardcore hacking thing called regexp, which probably would have taken me personally a couple hours. I'm not the most up-to-date developer there is, but it tells you these complex code that would take some time. And you could just keep going through, changing data types, converging, and then let me see if I have diagnosing errors. So one of my favorite features for the least is, wrote a code, this is an error I did on purpose, and from within the notebook itself, don't even need to go to Databricks Assistant, you could just say diagnose error, and it says, wow, instead of doing 1 plus quote X, the correct format is that string plus 1, pumped it back, the recommendation into the engine, and I hit run, and now it works. That was the simplest example, but you could use this against pretty complex type of information. So that's generally it for the Databricks Assistant. Does a whole lot more, but then you can go ahead and document the tables themselves, use AI to automatically make, if you have tens of thousands of tables, hundreds of thousands of rows, it's very time consuming to have these MDM, master data management, people typing it in. So Databricks can automatically say, what's the main gist of this table or of these columns? Does a really good job. So now that we have this in Unity Catalog, I can say, hey, is there a table I can use to find which director, and this I did intentionally make funky wording, brings in the big bucks. That's a colloquialism that SQL generally wouldn't know. And Databricks, I honestly didn't know if that would work or not. I tried a cute phrase, bring in the big bucks. And somehow it knew bring in the big bucks might have something to do with budget table, fund trans, or the movie that we put in there, the movie table. So that is pretty darn cool. And that's why it's so important to register things in Unity Catalog. And when you have tens of thousands of tables, it just makes it easier. I type that in our interface. You can use really any interface now, enable non-technical people, forget all the notebook I showed. They just start at the end where they have a prompt, or they could use Power BI or Excel or any interface, type in which director brings in the big bucks, and it'll figure out the data. So let me jump back. Hopefully that was pretty cool. Just some of the intelligence in there. For the more complex people, you have the ability to do AI functions. So for example, you write a program or an AI model or even an LLM, and you could say, based on this document, how relevant is it to to the audience? Or how relevant is it to buying a car versus watching Taylor Swift, or whatever it is, and you have 1,000 records or 1,000,000 records, it will actually run the LLM through each one of those 1,000,000 records and give you a sentiment score using an AI function. So yeah, great use cases. Customized product emails from an email database of millions of users, looking through all the reviews on some website, extracting call center. I talked with the company, all they do is this one use case where they have call center logs and they have them help analyze. So when someone's talking in real time, they can say, you know what, the issue is with your carburetor. Something like that, it helps guide them. So helping with call center using Databricks Data Intelligence Platform. So I alluded to Predictive I. This helps put things at scale. So what optimizations to run. This is kind of like the real hardcore technical people. When I was with Oracle, I was worried about what the file size was, what was included in a header of files. It was like a big deal when you deal with billions or trillions of records. This could be the difference of many hours per day of compute that you can cut back. And especially when you do an LLM, you want the response to come in a matter of seconds, if not like what it used to be for hours. We have Minecraft is a really cool company doing a demonstration here, but so many other video games, Call of Duty, for example, they want real-time toxicity detection. So when kids or maybe some adults are cursing, it recognizes it and mutes them or kicks them out using AI. Or more commonly, before you start a game, it pairs you with somebody that the AI thinks will be a fun, real human person to play with. But with Predictive I, this helps you scale up or down. We have all different benchmarks, but it keeps things more simple. And we do find, like in this example workload, for mixed workloads, some long queries, some quick queries, the new result, just using AI, not doing anything different, was 3x. So most likely it'll work. If it doesn't, nothing lost, but it's all automated and likely it will be. So GenAI, anyone here interested in GenAI? Anyone here have implemented, aside from ChatGPT, something? This is great. So this is my primer. I actually co-authored a blog if you want to read a bunch more, but this succinctly says the 4 phases of your journey for AI. The first one, prompt engineering. This is what my kids do in college. Hey, I'm reading Grapes of Wrath. Give me 5 bullet points on what it means. Romeo and Juliet, who killed who again? What's the deal? And it'll tell you those answers. That's prompt engineering. And then retrieval augmented generation is RAG. This is where 90% of companies are. It's where you take an existing, it's called the foundational model like ChatGPT. Databricks actually came out with DBRX. Llama, there's so many out there, but you supply a small amount of your own data. Given this document, can you summarize it for me? And it's pretty quick, it's pretty good, it works, but the challenge is if you're not using a platform like Databricks, you still have to go to a third party. I'm curious how Apple's announcement with OpenAI, letting them get your email and text logs, I'm probably fine with it, but other people might be more protective of it. But if you have Databricks Intelligence Platform, the RAG part of it, we have something called RAG Studio. We'll be talking a lot more about that this week, that it's your own proprietary data. And the next level, fine-tuning, with those two, you're doing a little bit more pre-processing work, but you're making a model based on the language of the terms that you use. So in baseball, a can of corn means the ball was hit and you can just easily catch the ball. But can of corn, in agriculture is very different. So you want the model, if it's based on your lingo, then it's more accurate. But you need a little bit more skill set. And then pre-training is where a lot of companies are going, but it's been traditionally hard until Mosaic came out. This is where you also need a lot of data, where you make your own complete model from scratch. And Mosaic AI is really great for that. It costs more, but it's completely tuned to the context of your market, your domain, your industry. So, and I have a couple minutes left, so let's see what might be good. Summarizing with the LLMs, it's not just secure, but as much as it could be transparent, that whole lineage, seeing what version of data your LLM is based on, or the RAG, how new is that data? That's all part of transparency. And Mosaic makes it much, much cooler and quicker. And maybe I'll end on this slide in that this is where MLflow, but this is where the whole platform helps, is it's not just a point in time where you make a model. there's this it's called the whole profession called ML Ops, or the operationalizing of machine learning. So you do an experiment, you can see how accurate was the model. Is this model good enough? Like if you land something on the moon, you want it to be pretty much 100% accurate, or the landing craft may break. But if it's marketing, is 50% accuracy good for email campaign? I don't know. Is 80%? Is 90%? It still need to understand what the metrics are. And when it gets to the good enough stage, which is still up to a human to decide, then you promote it into production. And then over time, the real world changes, interest rates fluctuate, spending habits change, things get out of stock, a new competitive product comes in. Over time, your model may or may not, but usually degrades over time. So you want to just have this whole environment where you evaluate models, put it into production, report out, and before then you have a whole model factory. So I'm going to go so have the CTA up there. Scan that. This is what's happening in the summit. Totally want your feedback. Hope this has been helpful. Hope you can download this book. It's like way, way more than I talked about with more details. But I truly, like 95% of you, it's your first time here. I really hope you enjoy it. And I'm going to be spending the next 2 days broadcasting live from the Lakehouse, which is our live stream in the expo hall. So come by, wave, kind of listen in if you like. But good luck, everyone, with your journey, and thanks again.